Welcome to the Sage Nexus podcast, the space for vibrant adults navigating life's big changes and finding answers to our most pressing questions. We are the space where the curious discover what's next. I'm your host, Melissa France, and together we'll explore the frontiers of health span and lifespan with leading experts. We'll also dive into real-life stories of people like you and me, navigating life's biggest transitions, from careers to purpose, from combating aging stereotypes to discovering what's possible and forging vibrant new beginnings. Here at the Sage Nexus, we believe we're not just aging, we're saging, unfolding, expanding, and discovering new passions at every stage of life. So join me as we connect ideas, insights, and inspiring voices to help us live with more meaning and creativity. This is the Sage Nexus. Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us today. I'm super excited. We have a very special guest, Dr. Shashi Kusuma. If you have been following my blog, you know that I had cosmetic surgery about almost 3 months ago. And this is the surgeon that performed the surgery. And I'm really excited because there's a lot of misinformation about there, especially on social media, as far as cosmetic surgery is concerned and the different types. So we're going to have a really in-depth, frank discussion with Dr. Kusuma about everything that has to do with cosmetic surgery with a focus on facial plastic surgery. So, but first, let's get to know you, doctor. So, how
Yes.
did you pick cosmetic surgery? Like, tell me a little bit about you and how you came to do that.
Hello, Melissa. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you and talk to you and share this platform to explain to your audience because I really value education. I really value real conversations without much hype. And I think this is a great forum for that. So thank you for that. And I think it's great for your audience. He fell upon, or I should I say, ended up in cosmetic surgery with just life chances, I should say. I'm an artist at heart. I used to do a lot of sketches when I was young. I think of myself as a creative individual. I always like my ex handle says problem solver. That's what I call myself. And so I like to solve problems and come up with solutions to solve problems, and that's really enjoyable to me. I like science and the logic and all of the hardcore information that you learn in hard science and biology and things of that nature. I was an athlete growing up and I'm pretty coordinated. So I felt like I could use my hands, and I was fairly good with it. So I wanted to do something technical. I enjoy being my own boss. I don't want to have creative flow be interrupted with administration burden and kind of things like that. I really thought long and hard growing up and said, what area of a career or a profession or a craft can I fall into that will facilitate all of these various aspects that I like as a human being? And my father is a doctor, so naturally I was exposed to medicine. But he's not a plastic surgeon, he's not a surgeon at all, but at least I met people in the medical field. So I had some exposure to it. So, I mean, when I thought through all of the various things, really the only specialty, that allowed for all of this to happen is plastic surgery because it's really in the periphery of core medicine that plastic surgery survives. And it has interfaces with a whole bunch of different specialties. And we are like the pinch hitters in medicine because when OBGYN needs some help with something that a woman needs, we go and fix it. When a vascular surgeon needs something to close something, we go fix it. When a neurosurgeon needs something in the skull, we go fix it. When a hand surgeon needs something, we go fix it. So we're always fixing things. And so we are very versatile in creative on the spot thinking. And reconstruction surgery, where you have to rebuild a nose, rebuild a jaw, rebuild, some defects of the face through trauma, cancer, is all in the purview of plastic surgery. And so gives you such versatile background. And when you put it all together, you really feel extraordinarily comfortable and confident to modify somebody and make them look a certain way or a better way or their own way. And that's how it all came together. And cosmetic surgery is really the pinnacle of it all because you're taking a healthy human being and perfecting whatever you can by taking all of these principles in reconstruction and in surgery in general, and take care of them. So it's a extraordinarily creative field. It allows all of these fields to blossom.
Absolutely. And you're also, I mean, you're providing a service. People who have disfigurations that you're able to get them to a level. So there's a lot of satisfaction involved from, helping people aspect to making people look better, you know. You're an ENT as well. You're an ear, nose, and throat doctor. Is that correct?
Yes. So the traditional path to become a plastic surgeon is really 4 years of medical school, or actually 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, and residency. Historically, most plastic surgeons have to do a 5 year general surgery residency, which is general all over the body. And then you apply for a plastic surgery fellowship for an additional 2 years. So it's really 8 plus 5, that's 13, plus another 2, that's 15 years of education, hardcore education. And most of them come through general surgery. However, there's a small percentage of people that come through ENT, ear, nose, throat, or sometimes called otolaryngology, head, neck surgery, because as opposed to general surgery where you operate in the belly and things of that nature, ENT and head and neck surgery, we usually focus only on the face and neck. And
Which is what made me feel comfortable because when I did my surgery, it was about my neck and jowls, so I was like, "Oh, he's ENT, so he knows about all that stuff." So
yes, yes. So that's why I chose that path, because it seemed to make a lot more sense to me, because, I didn't want to spend a lot of time in the belly because I was focused on the face and neck and, those areas. And so the background in ENT really, offers you that exposure for a concentrated 5 year period that made me very well prepared for plastic surgery.
So you mentioned that you are artistic, and I get that because, cosmetic surgery is an art form. So I really love to understand a little bit more about your process when you meet a patient, and obviously they tell you, I want X, Y, and Z done, but how do you evaluate and what is your process for determining and also the techniques that you use? Like what's involved there?
Well, just like I said, the background of how I became a plastic surgeon, it's a lot of factors that you take in, at least I do. First and foremost is that you have an inherent sense of aesthetics that you want to see when you see something. You're able to analyze, like when I see mountain range, like like you showed me just now, what stands out, what looks good, how does the lighting look good, and what is the landmark look like, and what stands out and what doesn't stand out, what fits the scene and what doesn't fit the scene. And so that's where it really starts. How does the hair look? How do the brows look? How does the nose look? And how is the skin? And how are the landmarks, which are essentially the bony structure? Is there symmetry, from the side to side, top to down? Are the proportions of the face, in congruence with each other? Or, the proportions of the lip to the nose, or the distance from the nose to the lip, or whatever else, are they aligned? And so you have to assess it globally, like at a macro scale first, and then you come down to the micro level and say, well, if I were to just look at the forehead, what is the issue there? And if I just look at the eyes, what are the issues? And so you kind of go from this macro aesthetic perspective to the micro, and then you analyze it in a systematic manner. And then you come up with a game plan and say, well, for me to achieve a nice jawline, there's something here in the jowl that doesn't fit. And if I look at that, I then look at the angle of the neck and the chin and say, is that sharp enough for me or not? Is there a deficiency of the chin? Is the Adam's apple too visible? So there's so many different things that look at it. Then of course you talk to the patient and analyze what they don't like about, or what they want to improve, or what they lost that they used to have when they were younger. And so you try to match what you think about it with the patient's wishes and desires. And then you analyze it systematically through photography and video. And so you take photography, and then you have reference points again with, landmarks, and you kind of look at it because it gives you a much more objective, true analysis that you could do. You can actually sometimes even measure on a computer, what the distance there should be between the pupils and all those sorts of things. And you go from there, and then you build a treatment plan based on that. Because if you do all of this exercise with diligence, then you have a very good idea of what you want to do. And then you tell the patient and explain to the patient with photography all the various components of it. And then the patient has to really understand that this surgeon is not really just selling me a whole bunch of stuff, but he or she really understands what they're trying to say and it makes sense to me. And so that's the process generally of how I determine what needs to be done. And then you also, of course, have to keep in mind the ethnicity, the sex of the patient, the age of the patient, and all those things are also important to take into consideration because you have to try to be natural as much as possible. You don't want to change somebody necessarily. You want to make them the best version of themselves. And so that is also something important to discuss with people.
Yeah. No, I remember one of the first questions you asked me after surgery when some of the swelling went down, is like, "Does your computer still recognize you?"
Yes, yes. I
It's
mean,
a
the
funny question, but it's true. And yes, it did recognize me, and it still recognizes me, so that made me happy. So, let's talk a little bit about, like, the different types of facial plastic surgery, because that, I think, is where there's a lot of misinformation, and I think it's important to set the record straight on the types of plastic surgery for the face, and what's happening.
Yeah. So yes, there is a lot of misinformation, and so facelift itself, for example, is very misunderstood because when somebody thinks of a facelift, well, the face is the whole face. Starts from here and goes down to here, but that's not all of it. The face actually, when things people think about the face, you also have to think about the neck also. So it's really face and neck at the end of the day, and then but the facelift itself, when people refer to it, only refers to majority of the time this part of the face that goes from the side of the ear down to the jaw, and most of the time from the jaw to the neck. That's really what people are referring to because it's not affecting the nose, which is part of the face. It's really not affecting the mouth, which is part of the face. It's not affecting the eyes, which is part of the face. It's not affecting the brow position or the forehead, which is also part of the face. So facelift itself is a misnomer because it's truly a lower face, and a lot of people have branded what they do for marketing purposes. Somebody calls it the Biltmore lift, or somebody calls it the Vanderbilt lift, or somebody calls it the South Florida lift, and various names to it. But I try to stay true to the description of what I'm trying to do. And in most cases, since I'm working mostly on the lower part of the face and the neck, that's what I focus on and describing it. So when I do a facelift, I really mean a lower face and neck lift. If somebody needs more than that done, then I say, well, I have to do a forehead lift or a brow lift in addition to a lower face and neck lift. If somebody needs eyelids worked on, then I say upper eyelid surgery, lower eyelid surgery. Somebody needs the nose done, then I call it a rhinoplasty. And so, so there's a lot of components to saying it's a full facial and neck rejuvenation. When you describe it as such, that's the complete comprehensive way to call something with proper description. So facelift in the market typically again means just the lower part of the face and the neck.
Okay, yeah, because really, like, when people have nose jobs, they just go in for the nose job. It's not like they're doing the nose and a combination of things, generally speaking, is my understanding.
Yeah, I mean, the most common thing done with the nose is usually a chin if people need it. But yes, typically when people have a nose job, usually just they consider just the nose. And the nose also, you have to be very careful because nose also has a function which is to breathe well without any obstruction. So whenever you talk about the nose job, you also have to talk, is it a functional nose job, which is mostly for helping somebody breathe better? Or is it a cosmetic nose job for somebody to make the nose look better? Or it really is both, where you are trying to make them breathe better and look better because if people are not well trained to do a good nose job, sometimes when you do a nose job, you make their breathing worse. Like back, in the 1980s, 90s, sometimes even in 2000s, maybe some today, they really tried to destroy the support structures of the nose, to make it look nice and cute and sharp and pointy. And when they did that, they destroyed the support structure, which really messed up their breathing. And so because they were not trained properly in the background of ENT in these cases, they did not understand the functional aspects of breathing well. But as people learned more, they now describe it, I'm functionally improving you and I'm cosmetically improving you. And so That's why education and what the questions are to ask a surgeon are critically important, because if you don't ask, the surgeon should take it upon themselves to describe and explain it to the patient that this is what's involved.
Right. And then also there's what do the people call like a deep plane plastic surgery and then SMAS and every they like a lot of doctors will use like this lingo, like you said, they'll call it something which has been something that's been around for ages. But what is that? Like talk a little bit about
Like,
these types.
so I actually made a video on my YouTube channel, and it's gotten a lot of views because of the same thing that that same thing I suffer from, because patients come now asking for a specific named thing because that's what they read about or heard about. Well, again, going back to fundamentals and first principles, which is what I believe in, are what what people need to know is that when you're trying to move or alter or improve somebody's face, again, speaking of face, in this case, maybe the cheeks, the jowls, the neck, lower face and neck component, or whatever else, we have to be very specific and explain to people. So when you talk about a deep plane facelift or a SMAS facelift, they are essentially all trying to do the same thing, which is you want to elevate all of the droopy skin that comes and kind of hangs out here to a little bit of a higher position where it needs to be. And then you have to know the vector of the change, which is, are you going vertically up, are you going obliquely, are you going laterally? So that is a component of it. And then you have to explain the anatomy to patients, which is their skin. There's it's the human body is an amazing thing. It's very, very well organized in a very anatomically specific way. So if you were to kind of look at it as loaves of bread and kind of keep taking each loaf off, you know exactly what you're going to see after you go there. So for example, in the face, there's skin, which is the surface that you touch, and right below the skin there's fat. There's just what we call subcutaneous fat underneath the cutaneous part. Cutis is skin. Subcutaneous means underneath the skin fat, which is a nice thin layer of fat. Below that, there's something called the SMAS layer, which is called submuscular aponeurotic, area. Okay, SMAS layer, which is not important for people to really know what that means. That it's just a covering. It's a covering on top of the facial muscles, which make your face move. Okay. So if you were to look at it, you have the skin, you have the fat, and below that is going to be what we call the SMAS layer. And below that, there are what we call the mimetic muscles which move your face. When we talk about a SMAS lift or a deep plane lift, we usually try to move that SMAS layer either from the top of it or from below it, like in a bed sheet. I could either pull the bed sheet from the top of it to spread it straight, or I could go underneath and pull it and do the same thing. So that's the layer that we're talking about, which is the SMAS layer. In a SMAS lift, you're working mostly from the top of it to pull it up. In the deep plane, you're going underneath to pull it up, basically. But in both cases, you're trying to pull it up to a vertical position where it used to be.
Okay. So so deep plane and SMAS are like the same thing.
Well, they try to accomplish the same thing, but from a different position anatomically. Like I said, they're working with the same tissue, but in a SMAS, you're working from the top of the tissue. In a deep plane, you're going from underneath the tissue. So the best example I can give is that bed sheet example. If I'm trying to move the bed sheet to maybe set it nice and smooth, I can either pull from the top of it, or I could kind of put my hand below it and pull it down the same way to tuck it on the corners. So whichever way you're doing, that's the main difference essentially, is that are you working from the top of it or from the bottom of it? And surgeons feel differently about it. Some surgeons feel going from the bottom gives me a better pull. Some surgeons feel like if I go from the top, it gives me a better pull. So this is all turf battles of people's, like Tiger Woods may hit a golf shot a certain way, and Mickelson may hit a golf ball a different way, but they're all both trying to get to the hole in as short a period of time as possible, right? So they're both great. They're both great golfers, and they both have the great technique, and they just think differently about how to approach it. So it's not so much that what is used; it's the surgeon that's performing the procedure. I can get fantastic results based on SMAS. I can get fantastic results doing deep plane also. But the important thing is, the way I think about it is that what am I trying to correct on a patient, and why would I choose this technique versus another technique? what is it going to affect, what is it going to change, and those are the things that I think about. And the technique really is up to me to choose, because you're coming to me for my expertise. And a good surgeon should be versatile in all techniques so that you're able to pick out of the toolbox which one works the best.
Right. Right. Okay. So it's not a matter of like which one is better than the other. It just depends on the
Well, the question is which one is better for this particular patient.
right. Okay.
That's really the critical question, is because, see, for example, if you have somebody who's, got a full fat face, if you work it from the top, you may make them fuller. If you work from the bottom, you may make them a little bit leaner. So you have to determine, like, because sometimes, like, for example, if you have a very thin person in the face, you want to almost like imbricate it or plicate it on each other so that you increase the volume. Like if you take and roll something on itself, it becomes a little thicker, right? If you take a flat sheet and you kind of roll it on itself, you're making it a little bit thicker. So if somebody is very thin in the face and you want to put some volume back, you want to roll it almost from the top, so that it makes it look better. But if somebody's already full, you may want to go underneath and pull it and then trim some of it so that you're making them thinner.
I'm going to put the link to that explainer video that you have on your website. I'll put a link in our notes to this.
It would be very helpful because I had an opportunity to kind of draw it out on a whiteboard and I was able to show and
Right.
kind of so people understand, because there's some technical reasons as well. I mean, deep playing is inherently a bit more risky because you're going underneath into another level in the skin or in the face, so that can impact the facial nerves, which are important to move. And so there's a little bit of risk of that. And some surgeons don't want to go there. Other surgeons, feel like I get a fantastic result the way I do it. I don't want to change, because why change? Because I always get consistent, safe, reliable, reproducible results. It works great. I don't want to change it. So other surgeons say I'm versatile in doing whatever I want to do, and I want to apply my technique based on the patient. And that's what I do, because I'm well trained in all of it. And so if I want to do a deep plane because of X, Y, or Z reason, I do that. If I don't want to do it, I don't do it. Or I do a hybrid. For example, what I mean is that in the face, I may want to increase the volume, so I do a smash lift. In the neck, they have thickness, so I want to carve it out, so I do a deep neck in the neck, and vice versa. So it depends on what the problem is for that particular person to get the best out.
I see. Okay. What did you do on me?
I did a smash lift on you.
You did snaz. Okay. Others. Like I said, I am going to put a link to the video because it's really excellent, and I watched it before I had my surgery, and you explained things really well.
I did a lot of deep neck work on you in the neck because you had a lot of fullness there. So I had to work a lot of the deep neck carving in you. And then in the face, I did the smash elevation.
I gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, I know my neck was the
So Melissa, let me just summarize it one more time, because I think we talked about a lot, because people often get confused. So if you think of it anatomically, you have skin, you have the fat, which is called a subcutaneous fat, then you have the smash layer, and then you have the facial muscles that move the face below that. So when you're working with the smash or the deep plane, you're working with that smash layer, okay? And in the smash lift, you work from top of the muscle to lift it up. In the deep plane, you basically go below below that layer to pull up the same thing. And the direction of pull and all that, again, is surgeon dependent and patient dependent. But the summary point is, it's not so much the specific named technique, but what technique is necessary for which patient and why. And is your surgeon able to be careful enough and versatile enough to do whichever one is going to give that person the best result possible?
and, there's also that's another area where there's misinformation because, like, I've seen videos where they're like, "This is new, deep plane is, like, new," but it isn't.
No,
It's
deep
r
lane has been described 50 years ago at least or so. It was described a long time ago. There have been papers written about it, because people always are trying to innovate and kind of improve upon, the day before. And so a lot of great surgeons have thought through a lot of things. They tried a lot of different things. And it's like a bell bottoms, you kind of try something, and when it's something good, you just go back to it usually after trying something new. But all of these techniques are good in the right hands with the right people. But deep plane is certainly not new. It's been around for a very, very long time. And some people, still continue to do it. Other people have tried it and went back to what they felt better about. But not much of this is really new. What's new, however, is to do combination services. Like back when deep lane, and all these facelift techniques were coming into vogue for the first time, a few decades ago, there was not a lot of additional tools that surgeons used. For example, there was no laser to improve the skin. People did not combine fat grafting at the same time. People did not do eyes and all these things at the same time. People, so what is new really is to really focus on skin health with lasers and skincare products. What is new is to do comprehensive combination services. What is new is to improve the surgical anesthetic techniques. What is new is to have better postoperative management with the additional things like you did, like for example, if you're not eating well, giving them IV therapy, giving them supplements through that, maybe doing some hyperbaric oxygen therapy, but there's a lot of additional things that you can do now that you didn't do before. So what's really new is prepping the patient properly, having the right instrumentation that's better, lasers that are better pad grafting techniques. Those are all very new. So now it's an exciting time because you truly can transform somebody and make them look very natural by utilizing what needs to be done. Because if you take a person with bad skin and make them tight, they're just tight with bad skin. They don't look any better, really. So you have to make sure, certainly, take care of the entire spectrum of what they need to make them look their best.
Yeah.
That's what's new.
Absolutely, and that was what I wanted to get into, because you did a combination on me, and I know that this is not, your mother's plastic surgery, as they say. Things have evolved since, my mother had work done and, so, but I really wanna talk about lasers and skin resurfacing and skin rejuvenation because that's huge, and it's very confusing because there's, like, all these different types of lasers and, like, how do you know which one to use and what do they all do? So, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about lasers and, skin rejuvenation because that's huge, especially, like, you know, we live in South Florida, and I grew up, sunbathing, and back when I was a kid, we used baby oil.
I heard then get a mirror or some kind of, some kind of to reflect the sun's.
No, 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 we put lemon I mean, we did everything, like, it's a miracle that, my I didn't well, my skin isn't worse than it was, but, I think that the skin rejuvenation is a huge thing, and so talk a little bit about the lasers, when you use them, how you use them, etcetera.
Yeah.
'Cause you did some on me. It was great.
Yes. So remember, Melissa, we just spoke about skin anatomy, right? You have skin, you have the subcutaneous fat. So lasers only work on the surface skin. That's all they work on for the most part, the ones that we use. And if you want to really understand what lasers to use, you really need to understand laser wavelengths. Okay. I mean, I'm not going to get too wonky technical, but it's really important to know because yes, you're right. There's so many different types of lasers, and many of them are based on the type of wavelength they emit, because all lasers have a wavelength that they emit because light is made of wavelengths, and of different kinds. And so the different wavelengths are important because they have different properties of what they're able to do. And so lasers are used because they focus that wavelength and that light energy into a specific source, kind of specific point. And you can use it to your advantage. So laser resurfacing essentially is about creating the perfect injury to your skin so that your body can heal that perfect injury and make it better than it was before, because that's what the body does, rejuvenates itself. And so really the art and science of laser resurfacing is about knowing what wavelength to use to create the perfect injury so that your body can heal it and make the skin healthier and better. And so that's the real fundamental concept. So the lasers, for example, some wavelengths work on a very shallow level in the skin. And many of these wavelengths are attracted to certain target molecules, targets in the skin. They're called chromophores. And so if you have brown spots, if you have red spots that are, from blood vessels, or if you have whatever, certain wavelengths are very specifically able to target those. So that's what you want to use. If you want to do skin tightening, for example, which is a different purpose, you have to use a different laser because now you have to go to the place, to the anatomical part of the skin that has collagen and elastin in it so that you can relayer all of those and rejuvenate those because they don't reside in the very surface of the skin. They're a bit deeper. So you need a wavelength that can target that deeper area. And so that's what you have to know. So first, similar to what we talked about facelifts, you have to know from a patient, what is your problem? Do you have pigment issues? Do you have wrinkle issues? Do you have both? What kind of pigment do you have? Are you from an Indian descent like I am and have brown skin? Do you have white skin like you do? Or are you Mediterranean and have olive skin? Are you Swedish and have really, really, really pale skin? So it really depends, right? It really depends. Or African skin, which is very dark, or can be very dark. So it really anywhere in between. So you have to understand skin really well. You have to understand the laser wavelength and laser physics really well. And you have to know what is the problem that you're actually trying to treat in a patient. And that's why I don't really like to refer to things based on, I'm doing a photona laser, I'm doing a Cyton laser. I want to know what is the wavelength of the laser and what are you trying to actually treat and what is your skin background. So these are the fundamentals that you need to talk about.
Yeah, no, you did, well, we did we did several different things when we did my surgery, but one of the things was the laser on my upper lip, because as we age, we tend to, lose collagen and we thin out up here. So you did laser and then you also did fat grafting. So that's my next question, fat grafting.
So before we go there, I wanted to ask you a question. Now that we're talking about your procedure, how is all everything settling down 3 months into it?
So, I feel like I really turned a corner, let's just say this past week, and, in my blog, I talk about recovery, and I was gonna kill it, like, I was gonna be, like, the your A+ recovery patient of the year, and at the beginning, I did everything right, and I even told you I was listening to Reiki healing videos, I was, like, really and I was eating protein and diet and everything, and I felt like my recovery was going really well. Then we had some stitches pop, which happens, and everybody's recovery is different, and it's surgery, and it's a big deal, So, I feel like I feel great. I'm happy with my results. I like what you did, it's a natural look, which is what I wanted. As far as recovery is concerned, it's not easy. I was trying to make it easy, but it's not, you have to take care of yourself and it's a little uncomfortable but that's the decision that you make when you decide to do cosmetic surgery. It's all part of the whole picture is, yes, you're gonna look great after, but, the recovery, just like any kind of surgery that you do, the recovery can be sometimes not what you expected.
Well, I gotta tell you look fantastic. I haven't seen you in about 3 or 4 weeks now, but you look absolutely fantastic. You're glowing through the camera, and I need to pat myself in the back and pat you so
Absolutely, kudos to you, I'm very happy, and when women give you compliments, so I'm in California right now in, Monterey, and I was at, one of my favorite restaurants. I was just sitting at the bar and, you just start talking to people and I have a granddaughter who's 16 years old, and the woman said to me, "You don't look like you have a 16-year-old granddaughter." So when a woman gives you a compliment, that's a big deal.
that's a big deal. Yes, yes. But you describe the process well, and this is again, we're having a very authentic conversation. We're not trying to be glamorous. We're not trying to, we're just trying to have an authentic conversation. So, like you said, it wasn't easy, right? Because the range of experience patients have, because this is mostly what I do is face work, is very, very different from person to person. Some people cruise through it truly without any problem at all. I remember a very distinct case one time where a lady came from out of town with her husband and they stayed at a hotel next door, right by the office. I did search. And the next evening, I went to their hotel to take a look at them because they were staying from out of town and just to check up on them. And they offered me a glass of scotch in the evening when I went there and let's all have a drink together. I mean, so that's how good they felt, you know? I've had a few patients go to an event like 4 days after surgery because it was cold. They wore a turtleneck. They had a lot of hair, so they put it on their side. They wore some kind of glasses that kind of hide a little bit, and they felt good enough to go to an event, you know. And they some
Yeah, I went to the thing at your office. You did a presentation at your office. I think I wasn't even a week. It was like 4 days after, and I was able to was out.
This it's very, very broad. So when people see pictures of somebody before and after, there's a lot that goes into it between and before and after. You know, it's a journey. Surgery is always a journey. You start somewhere, you kind of sometimes have a straight line, you sometimes have a little bumpy line, but you ultimately get there. Some people get there very quickly, some people take a little bit longer, some people take a little detour, but ultimately, by about 3 months' time, most people look absolutely fantastic. And so that's the usual experience that everybody has.
Yeah, absolutely. I told you my brother's a doctor. He's an ophthalmologist, and he's had some work done. And so I was like, "John, what's" he says, "Yeah, you never know what's gonna happen." And nobody ever really tells you because they can't, because you don't know they can't tell you what it's gonna be like. They can just tell you the right things to do in order to make your recovery optimal. So I want to talk about the fat grafting because I find that to be incredibly very interesting. And when would you do fat grafting as opposed to fillers, the synthetic fillers that they use?
One of my favorite things to do, Melissa. Fat grafting is one of my favorite things to do because I'm all about rejuvenation. I'm all about being natural. I'm all about leveraging the intelligence that the human body has to its ultimate potential. I do not generally like synthetic materials of any type in food, in life in general. I really try to lean towards natural remedies of all types. A- And the extension of that is in fat grafting because fat, believe it or not, is a very active anatomical part of your body, contrary to what a lot of people think. It has a lot of blood vessels. As a matter of fact, if you take fat, only 30% or so of the fat is really fat cells. The rest of it is all different types of tissues and different types of cells, then blood vessels, things like that. And so fat grafting has a tremendous amount of very, very good things in it that can do a lot of great stuff. And so anytime you can put a natural substance that your body already has back into it where it's been lost, that's the best thing to do. And most importantly, it's your own tissue. It's the best natural filler because that's what all skin has underneath it is all everywhere in the body is fat and it's soft and it's supposed to be there. It's what's supposed to be there. And so fat grafting is great because it's your own substance. It's the best filler. It's naturally supposed to be there. Everybody has some supply of it you can harvest from something. And if it works, it looks natural, it feels natural, and it can last if it survives forever or for a very, very long time. And so that's why it has a lot of advantages. And another thing that we discovered in plastic surgery is that fat cells, when they survive, because they have so many other types of good cells and good things in it, it can actually enhance the areas because it heals things there. Like, for example, people's skin looks better and people's pigment looks better. Their circulation improves. And so there's a lot of regenerative things that can happen. And so that's why I like fat grafting. But some people have trepidation because the general questions are, what if one side of the fat works better than the other? It's possible. Is all of it going to survive and a lot of it's going to die? What is the consistency of getting reproducible outcomes? So there's some uncertainty around it, and hence some people worry about it. And some people may worry that if it survives and I don't like it, maybe I'm stuck with it and I don't want to be stuck with it. So there's lot of pros and maybe some unjustified fears and concerns, I would say, versus synthetic fillers, which are easy to decide and do because you don't have to harvest it, you don't have to process it. You can come in and just get injected and leave. If you don't like it, in many cases, you can dissolve it and you can experiment with it in a sense, and it's quick. And so there's advantages to that also. But The way I think about it, Melissa, is that we start losing some volume, maybe even as early as in our 20s and 30s. Okay. So if you think of it, I lose a teaspoon. I'm just throwing a number out there just to kind of quantify it. If I lose a teaspoon worth of fat in my face starting in my 30s, I would love to get into the habit of saying for all of my patients, I want to just put 1 teaspoon of fat back from elsewhere in the body back in the face that they lost. So instead of doing fillers from their 30s, I would like to do once a year a very, very small amount of fat grafting to the face, on a yearly basis.
That's interesting. That I did not, but this fat grafting is kind of really interesting. How do you know if it's gonna survive? Like, how do you? Because it's living tissue, so how do you know if it's gonna survive, or do you know, or
So I generally don't know what's going to survive or not going to survive, but you always have to do the fundamental things correctly, always. Meaning, you harvest good fat from a good part of the body. You make sure that you do it very cleanly and atraumatically. You make sure you process it well. Make sure you put it back without disturbing it too much in the right places at the right depth and the right amount. And you make sure that you have good postoperative care and the patient is compliant and does as well, right? So if you're able to do all of the fundamentals right, just as in anything else you do, the chance of success is obviously higher than it would be otherwise.
I mean, I think I've done really well. You did some fat in here, and I almost feel like it's like plumping or something. I feel like I look even better now than I did right after you did it.
It is usually the case because once the fat you put in, takes form, comes back to life because now it has good blood supply. It's like living and functioning tissue, and it makes a home there. Like I said, many things improve in that area. The skin quality improves, the pigment improves, the softness improves, the texture improves. All of those improve, and many times people see 3, 4, 5, 6 months later, it continues to improve. And so that's what fat. So how do I know? I don't know exactly, but I just trust the process. If anything I can tell you about church is that I trust the process. Like I say, every step that's involved, I want to do it the best I can, and I want the patient to follow instructions the best they can. If both of us are in partnership and we do every step of the process well, the likelihood of ultimate success is always higher.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, it's like a miracle. Fat grafting, the way you describe it is amazing. So here's another major question because, my audience are, 50 and above and, healthy, vibrant people, and we want to keep it that way. And we want to look that way too. But the other thing that we have no control over is like crepey, saggy skin. So, is there anything that we can do about it? Like in our arms or our stomach, or what can we do as far as that's concerned?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the skin is skin anywhere. If there's a lot of saggy skin, like people have the jowls in the face, you can remove it. Just like we did a facelift, you could do that in the arms, you could do it in the legs, you could do it in the belly, or breast for that matter, you could do it there. If you have loss of volume, like in the breast, you could fat graft the breast. You could do the same thing. If you want, yeah, if you want to improve the quality of the skin,
And instead of like doing a lift or whatever, you can just do fat grafting.
well, again, it depends on the problem, right? If somebody has small breasts and you want to increase volume, you can certainly do fat grafting. If somebody has droopy breasts, though, you have to lift it. You do have to do a lift and maybe do fat grafting. So it really depends on what the person's problem is. But yes, so the principles stay the same. So you have to know, do I want to improve the skin quality? In which case we can do lasers. Do I want to remove skin because there's too much? In which case you can remove the skin just like a facelift you could do. If they lost volume in certain areas of the body, like some women have hip dips, whatever, you can fat graft those areas. So there's a lot of things that you
Of what? Wait, what did you say? I missed that. They have what?
hip dips right by the hips. There's some depression there that you can fill in. So there's a lot of things you can do similarly to the face, as long as you can hide the scar and you can do combination therapies to improve it. So yes, the options that people have now, we also have, by the way, non-surgical devices also that improve the skin tightening a little bit. There's some devices that are reasonably good. There's of course skincare products. There's red light. There's lots of different things that people can do to enhance pretty much their look all over the body.
Okay, and so the non-surgical, I think you have like a machine also in your office that I was super curious about.
I have a few machines in the office. I have a machine that tightens skin called Renuvion J Plasma. I have a machine that does muscle tightening called M Sculpt Neo.
That's what I was talking about, the M skull.
And I have machines that improve skin called ultra clear laser that I use. I have red light therapy that also improves skin, and of course we have a lot of different types of devices available for different things. But again, another important concept that I really want you to understand and patients that that to understand and your audience to understand, you have to make sure you know what you're treating and use the proper device or the operation or the product for that particular treatment. You cannot optimize a treatment if you're trying to substitute one treatment for another. For example, if you go to a med spa, if you go to a doctor's office, or if you go to any facility and they have a machine and they want to recommend it for everybody for everything, it is not the right thing. Okay.
No one does.
Yes, you have to make sure, because you cannot substitute. If somebody needs a facelift, they need a facelift. They don't need a skin tightening device. If somebody needs volume to be put back in, they need volume. They don't need it to be tighter because you're trying to replace volume with tightening the skin. It's not going to work. If somebody has bad skin, you have to improve the skin, because surgery will not improve the quality of the skin. So you have to optimize the problem with the solution.
I know it took me a really long time to finally make the decision to have cosmetic surgery done. I visited a lot of doctors, I struggled with it philosophically, like, do I wanna grow old gracefully? And I was like, "Nah, fuck that shit. I'm not growing old gracefully." So, I'd like to know, like, just what do you look for? What are the questions that you wanna ask when you're going in for consultation?
Like if you're a patient, you mean?
Like, if you're a patient and you're trying to decide, like,
Yeah.
who you
S-
you know
So first and foremost is know why you're doing it. Are you doing it for yourself? Are you doing it to please somebody else? Are you doing it because you are insecure or have some other problems in your life that you're trying to solve with something else? Do you have the financial means? Do you have the support that you need? Do you have the time off that you need? Do you have the resources that you need? So you need to first be yourself very well,
excellent, yes.
and then you need to know that, and then you obviously need to know who you want to go to. So asking people that you trust, who should I go to, why should I go there, what was your experience like, so you get some recommendations from people that you trust in your circle would be always a good thing. But still, then you have to go yourself to, kind of say, well, with the recommended, XYZ person, let me go see about them. Nowadays, you can search, right? You could, clearly, go to their website, maybe. You could look at their social media channel, you could do their YouTube channel, whatever it might be that you want to do. You can do reviews are also good to look at, but, reviews, a lot of times you don't know, what they are, because people are all over the place. And, one it's all, you have to use your judgment and not feel like, whatever, because
Yeah, no, I read between the lines of the reviews because you don't know if it's a nut job or like
yeah, because you never know that. But yeah, so these are the things you have to know about. And then when you come in, you have to kind of understand, what is their training, are you able to trust them? Can you relate with them, relate to them? You have a good rapport with them. Do you feel good when you're talking to them? Are they able to explain things to you properly? Does it make sense to me? Are they trying to sell me, or are they trying to really educate me? Are they putting together a very good comprehensive solution for me? Or are they just trying to sell what they know to do and that's all they're going to do? How is the office? How is the staff? There's a lot of things, a lot of data points to take in. What type of anesthesia do they provide? Where do they do the surgery? Are they board certified? If so, by which age, which nation is the board certification from? What is their training background? And can I talk to one or two other patients? If do I have an option to do that? So there's a lot of things that you have to put together, to understand. So the questions are, the best way I tell people is that you have to not go in asking for a specific operation. Like, for example, we talked about a deep plane facelift or a smash lift or something. Don't go in and say, I want a deep plane facelift or a smash lift. Go in and say, these are the things that I don't like about me. what can you do for me? And then you get into, once they give you the solutions, then understand the solutions depth, what is actually going to be done, things like that. And so you have to know what type of questions to ask based on that, not go in and say predetermined, oh, well, my friend did this. This is what I want.
The next thing, I wanna have a little bit of fun because let's get, a little gossipy because, we're all looking in the newspapers and we're looking at all the movie stars that have had, plastic surgery, and some have had look gorgeous and some have just absolutely ruined their faces. So I'd love to get, sort of your opinion, and I know we've talked about, Kris Jenner, who looks phenomenal. So she's Kris Jenner, Jane Fonda, Nicole Kidman is a little bit like too much, I would think, and Angelina Jolie. So those to me are, have had really good work done. So as a surgeon, when you look at them, do you like know what techniques or
I try not to speculate like that because I know it's very sexy to do so. Because, nowadays when I look at a picture in a magazine or online, I don't know if it's an authentic picture. I don't know if it's edited picture. I don't know. I have no idea at all, especially when they're celebrities, because they would never want to show themselves without, unless they look perfect. So I don't want to speculate like that. But yes, generally speaking, there are many celebrities that look great, many that don't look so great. And the people that look great are people who look natural, and people have good skin, and they're well put together, and they don't look over pulled or over puffed up like pillow face, and they look very, very natural and graceful and classic and classy. And so
you said pillow face, like, what is that? Like, how do you get that pillow face? Because people think of youthfulness as plump, so I think that, like, people will overcompensate on the puffy, plumping side. So what is that, like?
I think pillow. I mean, it's just like unnaturally full cheeks, unnaturally full face. Like it looks like it's puffy, and I mean, it doesn't fit. Like I said, remember when we talked about the natural contours that one should have? Is the proportion of the cheek height, match the nose or the eyes? But they just look like they're puffed out, too much, and so it's a very unnaturally filled face. Basically, is what I think of when I think of a pillow face, and it's overdoing volume correction or volume improvement.
It's overdoing, yeah, because we all like I was watching a movie the other night, I don't remember what it was, Kim Basinger. I don't know if you remember her.
I do what they're
Ah, gorgeous, sexy, everything, and she did something, and she lost that look that she had that was just so exquisite, you know?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. That's why you ruin things by overdoing it, by following a fad or doing something that doesn't fit you, because classics never change. Classics are classics because that's what they are, and you don't want to change that. And people often get into a fad and say, "Well, this is what other people are doing, therefore that's what I'm going to do," kind of thing, and overdo it. And like again, if you go to a person that does a lot of injections, that's all they're going to offer you. If you go to a person who just does one thing, that's all they're going to offer you because they have nothing else to offer. But you should try to find a place that's versatile and that can do anything that you need that's best for you. So if you overdo fillers because you're trying to put away surgery, you're going to look puffy and full. So that's what you want to avoid. And so what Kris Jenner had, I am not entirely sure, but I'm sure there was a combination of removing some fullness in the face. I'm sure there was some skin treatments done. I'm sure there was eye rejuvenation done. Maybe there was a redo facelift of some type that was done. I mean, so I'm sure it was a combination treatment for sure of some type. I don't know how long it took for a healing to happen. I don't know how many different things at different periods, because many of the people probably go frequently to improve their skin quality, improve a lot of different things that they do. I mean, because makeup and brows and hair, all those make a difference, right? It's just not surgery alone. That's how they.
There's a there's a series on I don't know if it's like HBO Max or Netflix, it's called Hacks, and the woman it's about a aging Vegas female comedian, and so there's some ageism involved in the show, but she always, like, every, 6 months or something, she'll go in and have, like, a little tweak done. It's part of sort of like you said, it's the regimen. They'll go in every once in a while and do a little tune-up.
You wouldn't believe this, but in my practice, I have a 100-year-old patient that comes to see me every single month, even today.
Are you kidding?
I'm not at all. I went to her 100th birthday, actually. She's going to turn 101 in October this year. And she just came last month to see me because she comes every single month and she's been doing so for now 5 or 6 years. And we have a date, ongoing date every single month. And she comes. I may not do something, but she always comes and, hey, doc, make me beautiful. That's what she says. And
I love
and I have people in their 20s that, also come on a regular basis. And so the breadth of the practice is fantastic. But, people who are consistent, who really care about how they look and feel and work at it every day, I think are the ones that age the best, that look graceful, that look natural. People who go do all kinds of crazy things suddenly because they have a midlife crisis, it's generally not a good idea.
Okay, that's the I love that, and I wanna talk about that more, as older people doing, surgery, but I wanna talk about men, because I think more and more men are starting to do cosmetic surgery, and while I don't like men that are, like, overly I like character in a man's face, but there's a limit. And so what types of things that you're doing, are you starting to see more men in your practice?
So yes, men, I think, are opening up more so now than ever before to maybe doing a few things here and there. And I think oftentimes it looks like their spouse or girlfriend or significant other is bringing them in to do something because they want them to look better because they're partners. And so it's coming from both directions, from themselves, from society, their significant other, and whatnot. And many of them are professionals that want to look a certain way, etc. So yeah, the common things that men, probably will do is hair restoration is a very common one. Upper eyelid surgery is a common one that men typically do. Many men now want a very chiseled jawline, so they want to do something about their neck, frequently.
Mhm.
Some people are trying to work on their skin quality as well, so that I do see frequently people that come for skin resurfacing, with their skin. Rarely, I'm not rarely, but on a average, I'm seeing more people that want to do just a simple Botox because they look always angry and so they want to soften that, so they come for that.
Is that a fat grafting? Could you do fat grafting for that, or it's still
So
Botox?
no, you cannot substitute the movement of that area that creates that number 11s there by grafting or filling anything. You have to we have to weaken the muscle so that it doesn't move as. And then if there's a deep groove, you potentially could do a little of a graft of some type. Yes, or you could do a filler there some type, but you have to be very careful because that area has a lot of blood vessels, and some people get into trouble by injecting there. So you have to have an experienced person doing it, but it can be done. So some men are doing some Botox. Many men nowadays are also doing weight management, with the new drugs on board, and so that's creating some skin issues, when they lose the weight, so they're coming for that. And some men come for the amnio to tone up their muscles of the belly or whatnot. So there's certainly plenty of options that men now have, and they're taking advantage of it. And now with local anesthesia, with only focusing on the neck and not doing too much there and kind of improving that, I think you can be very specialized and focused so you don't do too many things and look very natural but better.
Natural but better, exactly. I know now that I did my surgery, I'm, like, looking at my boyfriend going, "I think maybe you need." Oh,
It happens, believe it or not, it definitely happens. I have, if fortunately in my practice, I kind of sometimes feel like I'm a family plastic surgeon because I've I've taken care of the entire family, one after another.
yeah, that's cute, I love that, that's adorable. So, I think it's important for us to get a little bit more philosophical right now, because you said something that I think is super important when you were talking about when people, making the decision to have plastic surgery or not, and you have to think about, like, what you want out of it, and, so, and my audience, and we've talked about this, Dr. Kusuma, that the people that I talk to are people that are older, 50 and above, and these are people that are, active, vibrant people that wanna stay that way. And so for me, my personal experience was I take care of myself, I work out, that's very important to me. I try and eat well, but, I do have some of my, picadillos. I pull a glass of wine here and there. But, I think also ageism is a thing, and, a very dear friend of mine, and I love her to death, you would call her a gray hair, like, she is okay with that, and that is fine for her, but it wasn't gonna be fine for me. So, I felt like I wanted to look the way I felt, and that was the reason why I decided that it was the right thing for me to do, and I'm thrilled that I did it. I'm overjoyed that I did it. And I wanna hear, like, what are some of the things that you hear from your patients, and then I'm also curious about your 100-year-old patient, like, what kinds of things does she do, and how is her brain? Hmm, because it's the inner work and it's the outer work, and there's so many things, like just like in plastic surgery, there's things that they can do now that, you know, 20 years ago or whenever when my mom did her surgery, wasn't available or they didn't know back then, and just like now, like, there's many things that we can do, anti-aging is like a thing, but it's internal and external. So I'm curious to hear.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's the adage is that, you feel good, you look good and feel great, or something like that, because it always has to be internal and external. You cannot hide what's inside by just putting on something on the outside. It's never going to work, because confidence and happiness and joy and expression of that always shows in your demeanor, in the way you speak, in the way you look, in the way you carry yourself, and just a general ease you feel in your body, so it always is internal and external for me. And internal only comes from, like you said, discipline, eating well, sleeping well, taking care of your body, respecting it, getting the rest it needs. And so it's always a holistic, comprehensive way to look at life at large. The things that I hear from people are very similar things that, maybe you hear as well. Some people have this very vague notion of guilt, when they want to do something because they think it's vanity, which is a silly notion to me, because, you should always look and feel your best if you have the means to do so or the capacity to do so. It's just natural. I mean, when you look at something, a beautiful tree, you want to look at a beautiful tree that's well pruned, and you know what? It's just beauty is life, to me. And so I think that vanity aspect of it doesn't make sense to me in that regard, but some people feel that way. They have to overcome that. I mean, they can only do it themselves. Some people are fearful of anesthesia, and then, I'm going to not wake up, or, something's going to happen. So I offer all of these operations, or many of these, under local anesthesia. So if people have fear of anesthesia, it's not a concern. So I want to probe them and understand, what are your fears of why you may or may not want to do it. For some people, it could be, the fear of looking very different, looking like they're not themselves. And that's when, again, finding the right surgeon for you, who understands how to do surgeries very naturally, and who doesn't overdo things, or doesn't prescribe things that you should not do or don't need, and kind of complicate things. So that's important. Some people, it's finance, they feel like it's too much for them, and they don't want to spend money on that, but then you shouldn't do it in the first place. But just like anything else, nowadays there's good financing options people do have if they want to do it, and it's important enough for them. But I think, you have to have the right reasons for why you're doing it, and find the person that you have a good fit with, that you feel can do a good job for you. So ageism, yes, ageism goes both ways, not just for men but also women, because men have the same problems. You get a big fat belly, you got a big fat neck, and you lose your hair, and you lose your confidence, and it affects how you live, how other people look at you. Like, imagine you're a professor, or imagine you're an actor, or imagine you are somebody that's trying to close a business deal, or imagine me as a plastic surgeon. If I look like shit, and if I don't think anybody's going to trust me that I'm going to do a big dump flat. So So if I'm smoking and if I just look disheveled, nobody's going to trust me to do anything good for them. It's like you have to practice what you preach.
100%.
And then so I think but nowadays though, many people have overcome these objections from the past of this guilt or vague notion of some morality that they feel. But I think we're past that for the most part in this day and age, which is a great thing. As far as the 100-year-old is concerned, she's an actress, by the way. She's an amazing actress, and she still performs on stage. And she performs on stage, and she does not need any help. She memorizes all her lines, and she knows it like that. And
Like Betty White type, yeah.
she's sharp as can be, and she exudes joy. She says every morning she wakes up, she says, "What can I do great in my life today? I can't wait to get my day started." So it's all attitude, all her. She just is an expression of joy. So the expression she's not looking for joy, she's just an expression of it. That's the way she thinks about it.
Love that.
A lot of people try to find happiness, or I want to be happy, or I want to do something to be happy, but she expresses it in everything she does. It's a very different way to think about it, right? I mean, I'm not looking for happiness. I am happiness in a sense, and that's what she exudes.
You know, okay, we've talked about this, and you're into some of the Vedic philosophies and, the whole idea of ego and all that. But like this, we do, but we really need to be. It's all about being. It's about, encompassing that joy or instead of like always doing, we wanted being is kind of it. So
Yes, yes. And so she comes in, but of course, at this age, I'm not doing any particular surgery on her, but I do laser treatments for her skin. I do a little bit of Botox here and there. I do some injections here and there. And mostly we enjoy Healer's company because she's such a joy. She inspires so many people around her. Everybody likes to be around her because she's just such a joy to be around. So, and I get a kick out of it every month when she comes and she spends, a little bit of time with me. So,
awesome. I love that. That's a perfect way for us to end our conversation, and there's a lot to talk about. I'm sure there's more. And when I post this, I'm sure we'll get more questions and people will get a lot of feedback. But this was such a joy to be able to talk to you candidly, frankly, and ask all the questions and, really dig down into, what your process is and to help other people make decisions about their lives. So I thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And
of course, Melissa, this looks like we spent more than an hour and a half almost, and it flew through. It was great. I enjoyed talking to you, and it was a natural conversation. We had a very good rapport and exchange, and I'm always happy to discuss things like this because there's a lot of, like you said, you started off by saying there's a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of hype out there, so I feel it's almost like my duty and my obligation to put my voice out there, and people like me putting our voice out there to kind of educate people the right way.
absolutely, absolutely, and that's the purpose of Sage Collective is to be able to talk about all the things that we go through and be really honest and have honest discussions about, all the things that we're confronted with as we age. A pleasure, and thank you, and
Likewise. You look
I'll s
really certainly. You look absolutely fabulous. I'm so happy for you, and I will see you soon when you get back to Florida.
absolutely, okay. Thank you, doctor, have a good evening, bye-bye.
Good night. Bye bye.